Hello, welcome to a live stream. This is Chris and my little co-host Chibi, and today we're going to be drawing for Inktober and taking questions from you in the chat live. So, what do you say, Chibi? Do you got any meows in you? No? Good. Maybe you'll be quiet for this live stream. But today's prompt was coat, and I think somebody in the chat may have suggested this, but maybe it was for a different night. I don't know, but it's stuck in my head either way. So today when I was like, what do I do? I was like, I'm going to draw Blade, one of the little puppets from the Puppet Master films. Low budget, weird horror movies. And for some reason, even though Blade is a fairly simple character, that his design always stuck in my head. And he does wear a black trench coat. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool, a black trench coat. That's something that I could work on for Inktober. So it makes sense to me. Some people are jumping into the chat room. Let's see. We've got Roman, Compared, and Retro. Nice to see all of you. Yeah, a little earlier than yesterday. So let me just make sure I've got the chat window open in front of me. Good. Hello, David. It's going all right. It's going all right. I'll be honest. My day started, I wasn't in a good headspace. I was feeling exhausted and just really depressed, but I think my meds are kicking in. I did get them the other day, and it's making a difference. So right now, I'm starting to feel a lot better. Let's see. Pineapple asks, did I see the new Puppet Master? I haven't. I'm a little curious to see it. Haven't seen the latest one. Weezeman loves the Puppet Master. Cool. Lawrence, hello. Sigamigs, hello. Hello to James. At what age did I start drawing seriously? It really depends on how you define that. I've been drawing as long as I can remember. I used to get these books by a guy named Ed Emberley, and he would just tell you how to draw things in like basic shapes, people, vehicles, buildings. Yeah. But I mean, I've never really I didn't really try to be a professional at a young age or anything. At the same time, I did that episode where I had created a... Oh, there's my cat meowing. I had created that Transformers comic when I was only 10 years old, like a 60-page Transformers comic. I mean, that's kind of serious. Ignore her. She has everything she needs. I just gave her, in fact, a big snack. So if she's meowing, she just wants attention, which I was just giving her. Chibi. Such a needy cat right now. I talked to a professional artist recently, Matt Southworth, who draws, among other things, Stumptown. And I really like his work, and I was going over some of his work with him. And by the way, just hello to J Muse and KZ. And he gave me the advice that, he's like, what are you inking with? And I was like, I use brush pens a lot. He's like, look, some people can create great things with brush pens. He specifically mentioned Stefano Guardino. I might be mispronouncing his last name, sorry. But he mentioned that, there are people like him that are capable of it, but that, a more typical tool might be using nibs, which I've had before. But I haven't really used them in a while. But I following his advice, I went and picked these up today. I don't know if they're going to be the right nibs exactly for me. But we talked a bit about, just how to pull with it instead of pushing so that it doesn't, spatter or anything. And how to get, some nice-looking line work, at least what I liked. So, anyway. What kind of a cat do I have? I believe Chibi's called, a tortoiseshell, I think. She's just sort of a motley of colors. So, she's my little girl. She's getting old, so she meows a little more, but she likes to be with me. Hello, Mr. Stupid and Wrong. Hello, Jojo. Did I gave her insulin shot earlier today, and I think I just felt like a small drop of it was on her fur. You can smell it when you smell insulin. It smells like a Band-Aid. That's just what it smells like. So I wasn't trying to be gross and be like, stinky. I was just like, do I smell something? It's very subtle. Anyway, hello, Clay. You have two cats and there's hair everywhere. I have places like that, but they're only allowed sort of in certain areas. And anyway, Chibi, have some water. Yum. It's funny, you put cats right in front of something like food or water, and they're like, "Oh, I guess I'm supposed to have this." Okay, blah 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 blah. She's just like drinking the water, even though she didn't come over here for it originally. So I'm not using obviously the nibs right now, but I will try to play around with them and do like at least one of these live streams trying to utilize nibs instead of these brush pens and see what kind of results I can get from them. Hopefully it's something decent, right? But it was nice to talk like techniques with somebody whose work I admire, so that was pretty cool. So, some of you follow my channel. You may have seen that there's a new episode that was uploaded today. And it may look a little different because my normal camera that I've been using since I started this show has been like giving me issues lately, and it finally just died. So, I last minute had no choice but to basically record it on my iPhone. Hello, Peter from Greece. Well, hello from the United States. My favorite puppet from Puppet Master, probably Blade. I feel like he's got the most personality. How old was it? About 3.5 years, something like that. Yeah, I'm sure that the audio wasn't fantastic. You know, it was, that's about as loud as I can make it without like sort of an exterior type of microphone. So that was just the only capabilities I had. And I just did the best I could. You know, it was either that or no episode, and I'd rather like sort of have one more horror episode in October. I think that like my points, you know, were still cogent and clear. So anyway, hopefully it didn't bother anybody too badly. All I can tell you is that moving forward, I've invested now in a DSLR camera, and hopefully that produces even better results moving forward. It should. So that's kind of exciting, I think. Should be better at like, you know, auto balancing the whites, tracking my camera so that I am in focus as compared to like any sort of background element. So we'll see. Wasn't bad at all. Good, good. The final part of today's episode when you were doing the fan art drawing was weirdly dark. I sort of agree. I had the same lighting that I normally do, but what can I do? You know, it just it didn't have a lot of control with the iPhone. I think it's decent, but not amazing. It was great. Okay, well, thank you, Thomas. That's really nice of you to say. Hello, Jack. Hello, Terry. Nice to see so many people here. 60 frame per second comic tropes. I don't know if I'm going to put it in 60 frames. I'll put it like more like in probably like what they do with film, like something like 24 or something like that. We'll see. We'll see. I'll figure. I'll do some testing to see what looks best. I haven't seen The Lighthouse yet. Haven't had the time to go out and see a movie. I would really like to see The Lighthouse. I'm curious about it, but gonna have to be patient there. I am. Am I excited about the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover? I'm very excited. I'm keeping my expectations pretty modest in terms of special effects. I'm not expecting wall-to-wall action, but I think that there's a lot that they can do in terms of like, you know, presenting us with a lot of characters and sort of giving us some of those character moments and showing us some fan favorites from the past, which I think should be a real blast. So yeah, personally, I'm very excited about it. I have overall been very happy with the various crossovers they've done in the Arrowverse. I think that they just go for it, you know, and even if they don't have the budget, like, I'm willing to meet them halfway with my imagination on a TV show. Thanks for the compliment, Fred. Puppet Master was a full moon movie. Actually, I think they made like 10 or 11 of them. It's a lot. Hello, Watchful and Harmonious. Lighthouse was filmed in your hometown. Oh, that's exciting. What's your hometown? It was. Was it up in like Canada or something? I don't know where they filmed it exactly. Or Carolinas? I have no idea. Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia. I don't know exactly who, but my relatives that came to America came here from Nova Scotia on my father's side. Like my great grandfather came down from Nova Scotia. Hi. But beyond that, like I don't really have any records of my family history, so sort of all lost to time. But I knew they came down from Nova Scotia specifically. And before that, like what I've always been told was, it was sort of the typical, like just sort of like Anglo-Saxon English background, and they had like moved over to Canada and then down here to America, specifically settling in the Boston area. Chibi, what are you meowing about? I'm right here. You just got fed. Jeez, they're filming a Stephen King project down the road from you. Oh, that sounds cool, KZ. They're doing a lot of this stuff there. Worst event, Secret Wars 2 or 0 Hour? I would say that Secret Wars 2 was a little more mercenary. Like, they'd had such a big success that they sort of rushed out, almost the same idea, but not executed quite as well. 0 Hour, not a great result, but the goal there was to try to clean up continuity. I don't think they succeeded there, but it's a decent goal to have gone for. Like the idea of like a big fun crossover that would like clean up some background stuff. Like, so I would say that the worst event could be Secret Wars 2. Just because that one was done purely for like, money. And it's got a really embarrassing scene where the Beyonder is trying to live like a human, and he doesn't understand how to go to the bathroom, and Peter Parker is forced to teach him how to go to the bathroom. Not a very cool scene for a superhero, really. Hey, Gene, just started pretty recently. Hello, Sheldon. What's the most scariest non-horror film? Eraserhead. Eraserhead, definitely. Because not technically a horror movie, incredibly disturbing. The imagery, the sound, everything about it is designed to creep you out in the end. The terror of becoming a new parent. Yeah, Jojo says Secret Wars 2 is more entertaining. That might be fair. That might be fair. I was definitely sort of judging it on like, neither is a great crossover. Is Secret Wars 2 still more fun? It had its moments. It had its moments. But overall, I don't know. Neither of them are super memorable to me. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and that's all I can say, I guess. I don't know that Eraserhead is weird for the sake of being weird. I think it warrants some analysis. I think that, like, there's, like I say, it's about the terror of becoming a new parent and feeling like all that pressure that you're going to, like, hurt this thing no matter how hard you try not to. I think that there is something to it. I think David Lynch is kind of a weird guy, but I don't think he's being weird for the sake of being weird. I think it comes from an authentic place, is what I'm saying. What I'm arguing. The Wall? Yeah, The Walls can be pretty scary. Hellraiser sketches. Oh, that's an interesting idea. It's possible, but I think we're down to like 5 days now. I don't know if I'll get to cover like all the horror movies that I like to. I think I'd enjoy getting an opportunity to do something from It Follows I'd enjoy doing something from Hellraiser. I'd enjoy doing something from Suspiria. There's a lot of horror movies that I like that I'd love the excuse to include something, but I'm not 100% sure if I'll get to or not. It really depends on how that prompt word for the day strikes me in that moment in that day. But at this point, because everything has basically been based on a horror movie specifically, I think I'm gonna just I think I can come up with 5 more. I think I can do it, and that'll be sort of thematic for me, as I did all horror movies for the month. I haven't seen Under the Silver Lake. I'd be curious to see it, so I don't know if I like it or not. Oh, thanks, Austin. Appreciate that. Spider-Man Teaching the Beyonder takes place in Amazing Spider-Man, not Secret Wars 2. No, but it was a Secret Wars 2 crossover. There was a lot of tie-in issues. That's part of what I meant by mercenary. What's my favorite David Lynch film? Ooh, good question. Favorite. Probably Mulholland Drive. But I also am a big Twin Peaks fan, so I did actually like the very strange Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Some people say it's not that good. I like it a lot for what it is. And then I do like Blue Velvet quite a bit too. Hello, Mandela. Let's see. Do a drawing for Bird Box. You know, I never saw Bird Box. That was that Netflix movie with Sandra Bullock, right? I heard from some people that they hated it, and I heard from other people that they really loved it, so I didn't know what to make of it. Either way, it just didn't become a priority for me to see. But I'm curious to see anything that basically classifies itself within the horror realm. You know what I was thinking of today? I kept getting suggestions for people that were like criticizing a YouTube channel called Nostalgia Critic. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of that one before. I've never subscribed to it, but I definitely remember seeing some of his videos back in the day, and overall it just wasn't for me. But I guess a lot of people are like criticizing a recent episode that he made, so it just sort of kept popping up in my suggestions, like people like, and I don't know how the algorithm works, that it was like, this is what you want. Because I was like, nah, not necessarily. But it did get me thinking, have there ever been YouTube channels that you, at one point, were like either a fan of, subscribed to, or at least watched regularly, that you eventually like abandoned for some reason? Like it just sort of, and was it because it changed or you did? I'd be curious about that. He's been recommended in your feed too, David? Yeah. I don't know if Nostalgia Critic is funny or not. It wasn't really for me in the past. Like, the things that I've seen him do were like just sort of recreations of existing scenes, and I'm like, okay, but where's the joke? I'm like, you're just self-inserting yourself into movies. I didn't quite get what the joke was supposed to be in those. I'm not trying to throw it under the bus, because I'm not exactly an expert. It just didn't seem like it was for me. But it was interesting just sort of seeing like these recommendations. But the real thing that I'm talking about is, like, are there channels that you've abandoned or like left behind? And if so, like, why? Was it because you lost interest in the content, or was it because, like the content changed in your opinion. George Rockall Schmidt stopped being as interesting. Yeah, oh yeah, I've seen some of his critiques before. He hasn't done anything in quite a while, has he? I didn't even think about that. I've seen some of his critiques before. Huh, I wonder what happened to that guy. Hello, Jeff. He's filming a movie? What did I think about Arkham, a serious house on a serious earth? Interesting that you classify it as horror, Deadly. I can sort of get where you're going. I definitely think that, like, Dave McKean's artwork lends itself to a horrific vibe, but, like, the story itself, I personally didn't necessarily interpret as horror. I did like it. It was, at the time, I didn't really know anything about who Grant Morrison was, so, like, I came in without any baggage, and I was just like, oh, that was a really cool take on the Batman material. It felt pretty new and fresh back when it came out around like 89 or 90. JonTron, somebody you abandoned? Okay. Let's see. Opie and Anthony, yeah. Yeah, as soon as somebody sort of gets really racist, I have to abandon them too. I didn't listen to Opie and Anthony, but I'm aware of what you're talking about. Super cool. I don't think I've ever abandoned a channel. Yeah, early tonight. What this? Yeah, this is Puppet Master. This is Blade. Should become more obvious in a moment or two as I start adding some of his facial details. The trick is to like give it that expressive design, but you can't like really push it too far because it's a locked in, it's a puppet. It doesn't like his face doesn't move per se. It doesn't like, shift or anything. So he only has like one big expression. So it seems like most of you haven't necessarily abandoned things that you've enjoyed. You've sort of stayed loyal. I didn't know if there would be a few more examples of things of people like sort of bailing on a project because of something, like certain reasons. Thought it could be interesting. I abandoned Comic Book Girl 19 or vice versa. I know about the Bone Netflix series. Very excited about that. There's a lot of hate tubers. Really? I don't know that term, but I think I can guess what it means. Like just people sort of like, complaining about stuff. All hate tubers do is spread toxicity and vitriol. Yeah, I think there's a difference between, using humor to be fake angry and actually like sort of being legit, like just sort of like angry towards stuff. For instance, I guess what I'm thinking of specifically is I don't think of the angry video game nerd as an inherently negative voice, even though he supposedly is mad at like, some games, and he intentionally picks some pretty bad games. But I think that's funny as compared to like, just sort of spreading like anger towards certain people or creations. I hope he's not an example of hate tuber. I don't think that's what you guys mean. I hate hating. I hate hating too. I can definitely get mad at certain things, but I hate feeling like that. Yeah, the world is a negative enough place. I'd rather sort of focus on what I like and not just I definitely don't want to overlook flaws. There's plenty of comics that I have like reviewed, and I probably need to pull some again like where there are problems, but I don't want to do that as the main thing. Mostly I want to just say like, look, even if this has a little bit of a flaw, here's an element that they did well. Let's like see like how could that technique be applied. Let's isolate that and try to understand it. Yeah, being critical doesn't equal hate, and it also doesn't necessarily equal like love. So it's tricky. Hello, Graphite Grappler. I like that name. That's cool. I love those Puppet Masters. Kooky fun. Did I resolve my meds? I did. I've had things before, like issues where I haven't been able to like refill my med because of like something changing, and usually like the pharmacy will give us like sort of an emergency supply of a couple. So I was pretty surprised that CVS didn't do that for me, but maybe that was their mistake. Maybe that was one specific store. I really don't know. But anyway, I've resolved it. I woke up today feeling terrible, but I think that they're finally starting to kick in because I started on them yesterday. It just takes a while to get into the system. Watchworks Studios. I never heard about that one, Terry. I have to admit, that's a YouTube channel I've never even heard of. I thought of doing fan art for your channel, maybe of you with the Infinity Gauntlet. Well, you know, I'd never like ask because I don't want to put somebody out, but if you want to, you know, create something like that and I can share it with people, I'd be happy to do that much, just as long as you don't think the only thing that has ever like sort of like troubled me is, you know, I like showing fan art and I don't want anyone to feel obligated that they need to. That's why I try to like have like sort of a prize involved, just so that there's at least, and that like I'm happy to like plug if somebody has like, you know, a social media channel, I'm happy to plug that. But I am a firm proponent in artists should be paid for their work. So that's why I call it fan art as compared to like saying like send me in something. I never say send it in. Just letting you know I'm happy to share it though if that's something that works for you guys and that you would like. Then I love sharing that, and hopefully you can like, you know, get a couple new followers or something. I don't know. That would be cool. It's a tricky road, you know. I don't want to put anyone out. Whenever I've like tried pitching comics, I never like ask the artist or something like, hey, can you just sort of do this and, you know, we'll split the profits if it takes off. I always pay them like a good page rate when I'm working on things, and I'm giving some very serious thought to hiring an editor for my show to sort of free me up some more time to work on other aspects of the show. If I did that, that would definitely be a paid position where I'd be, you know, aiming to do more than minimum wage. H3H3 did stop being entertaining for me. You know, I don't watch everything H3H3 does, but overall I like Ethan. I think he's a pretty funny guy. I watch a fair amount of H3H3. Thanks, Sheldon. I enjoy showing the fan art. I just definitely hope that like people don't think I'm trying to like sort of get work for free, because it's really just more about just trying to connect with the community more than like trying to get something. It's not like I plaster my walls with fan art or anything. And the only reason I say it has to be fan art is honestly like as soon as I started showing art, people were just like sending me like, you know, a drawing that they did like, you know, 3-4 years ago, and I'm like, I don't have the time to edit all that together. I just that's a step too far for like what I have available to me. I haven't seen Primal Bomac. Is that the one though that's by Gendy Tartovsky, or I'm mispronouncing his name, but I think hopefully you know what I mean. I think that's the one. Gendy, I don't know. What channel or streaming service is it on? I guess I don't know that now that you mention it. I saw a trailer for it and I was like, oh, this looks smooth and, you know, looks like good animation, but I don't know where it is. I've abandoned one channel because he puts commercials at every 2 minutes. I've always told YouTube that if you're gonna put commercials on, I'm okay with that. You know, I would like some revenue, but put it at the very beginning. As far as I know, they have not started inserting commercials in the middle of my videos. I've always like selected that not to be a thing. I find it too distracting. for certain videos. I mean, like for a short, like I understand if it's a TV show and they have act breaks and you can send it to a commercial. It's a little different if you're in the middle of a criticism and all of a sudden, like, or in the middle of a sentence and it just cuts. I definitely see that. Like sometimes I'll watch those, like, you know, videos where people are just reading things on Reddit, you know, stories on Reddit, and it'll like cut to a commercial in the middle of a sentence. I was like, wait, what? It's very disorienting. There's 5 episodes of Primal. Okay, where is it though? I'll turn into a commercial on my own. I will not bow to any sponsor. Time to have a delicious Cliff Bar though. Ooh, these Cliff Bars. Whoa! Let's take a moment here to say thank you to Philip. Like, thank you from me and on behalf of everyone. Like that helps the channel. Thank you so much for such a generous super chat out of nowhere. Not even a question. Wow. Philip, that's really, really amazing. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Everybody's impressed. Yeah, I'm brought to you by Cliff Bar. Watch Cliff Bar like actually approach me or something, being like, "Yeah, we'd love to sponsor you," and I'm like, "No." I you know, it's good that my channel is at the success level that it is, which is not to say that it's like something you can live off of or anything, but it is something that gives back, like, you know, a bunch of the expense that I invest in it. It definitely does that much. Once you're there, oh my God, like every day, I'm serious, every day I will get like people asking to sort of sponsor or advertise on an episode. Most of it, of course, I don't even respond to. If they're really persistent, I just sort of tell them, hey, just not looking to do sponsored episodes right now. You know, I could sell out tomorrow and I could have a bunch of sponsors and ads and get a lot of money for this. But I think it would sort of ruin the show, and in the long term, like over time, I think it would get a little annoying. I'm okay with YouTube putting certain ads beforehand. I'm not saying no, never to, like, you know, would I ever have like sort of a sponsored episode? It's possible if I felt that the product was worthy of mentioning. So it's not a never, but it's unlikely is all I can say. I don't care for that stuff. I don't need to be talking to you about like NordVPN and stamps.com. You know, like we hear it on our podcasts all the time. Y'all hear it constantly everywhere. And I just if I can avoid it, I'm going to try. And I've been avoiding it for a while now because I get a lot of requests for ads, and I just don't believe in any of the real products right now. Let's see. Red Letter Media, they have steadily grown and show no signs of going backwards. Red Letter Media is great. Like, I think that they do very well on Patreon. I think that they do very well on Patreon, which is cool. Patreon is tricky. Like, if I could do this full time, I think I could create more sort of reward-based tiers on Patreon. Right now, I've got some rewards, like, you know, the ability to vote, access to a little bit of extra content here and there, exclusive blog posts, but not tons of extra stuff. Not tons. But fortunately, I do have, like, you know, some people that are helping out there. It's really nice. But thanks again, Philip. That was a really, really generous move. When is my comic coming out? Not sure that, I mean, nothing actively in development right now. Could happen someday. We'll see. Red Letter Media was doing $30,000 a month on Patreon. Well, that's cool. Of course, they've got more than one person. Like, you know, my show is just me, at least right now. But there's several people there that like work on their show, including, like, you know, the editing and the on-camera work. And then they do obviously rent a sizable sort of studio space and spend some money on, like, stuff. So, sponsored by Chibi. Where can I get a Comic Tropes t-shirt? You can get it on YouTube. If you ever look underneath the videos, I do have actually a few t-shirts. I'm still trying to think of some, new great designs, but I do have a handful of Comic Tropes t-shirts and stuff available on YouTube, since you asked. I like both Mike and Jay's opinions on Red Letter Media. I don't always agree with either of them consistently, but I do think that they frame their arguments well. I think that they do a good job of backing up, for the most part, what they believe. And I'm like, okay, I'm not on the same page as you on this particular movie, but you made your case, and I'm willing to, like, look at something in a new light. I did agree with them on, like, their big epic Mr. Plinkett look at the prequels, at least in general. But I didn't agree with them on things like The Last Jedi. I really liked The Last Jedi. Well, I'm trying to do my own Designs Graphite Grappler. Like I said, when people do work for or with me, I want to compensate them adequately for that. So I'm not really in a place where I can currently, like, fund designers to come up with t-shirt ideas. So I wouldn't feel right just sort of taking from anybody. I'm open to ideas. If people are just like, hey, this is something I'd like to see or something, I can give that some thought and see if I can execute it myself. But right now, I'm not in a place where I can afford to pay for, like, a t-shirt designer. You like the Keep Comics Weird t-shirt? Thanks. That's a public domain weird image that I like. I really liked Last Jedi, Austin. I think it was great. Big fan of director Rian Johnson. Definitely. Oh, I totally disagree that it's the worst. I think it's in my, like, top 3 Star Wars movies. I think it was so good. What did I like about it? I thought it was a great look at what happens when, like, somebody that's been sort of like a hero or something, but at least what happens when the protagonist fails. How do you deal with failure? Because rising up after a big failure definitely makes you a hero, and each of these characters were dealing with their own individual, like, very frustrating and tough failures, and coming back stronger, having actually learned something from it, as compared to just, like, shrugging it off or getting angry or something. So I thought it was a fascinating look at, like, how a hero can rise above failure. So I really liked it. I liked it a lot. And I like the characters of... I like the character of Rey quite a bit. I think she's very likable. I find it... she's... I don't know. There's a lot to like about her. But yeah. Knives Out does look great. I love mystery movies. And I mean, my favorite Rian Johnson movie might be Brick. Which is a great hard-boiled detective mystery, but set within high school. So it's a great old-fashioned sort of murder mystery with some great characters. An early young Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like, just knocking it out of the park. So I'm excited to see Rian Johnson specifically do mystery again with Knives Out. Yeah, cool. Some other people that love Brick. Oh, I don't think Rey is bland at all. I think she's, like, she comes from, like, just, like, being abandoned and feeling like that. Like, I think so many of us can relate to at least sort of feeling that sort of loneliness and wanting to belong somewhere. And yet, like, she has every reason to sort of just hate the world and, like, just give up, but she doesn't. I find that, like, heroic. I think she's very sweet and funny with, like, her friends, and I find Rey quite charming. I think she's a great hero. Sorry, obviously we have a big difference of opinion there, but totally works for me. Ray is Luke 2.0. I think that that's pretty accurate, you know? Luke was sort of like a guy that also had every reason to be like kind of angry at the world. And I mean, he sort of was when we first meet him. So's Ray, but, you know, they grew up isolated and angry because of that sort of isolation. They want to be out there and experience more of the world and learn more. My current review about Harrow County, I would say that Emmy sort of falls into a similar sort of set of characterizations. Thanks, Gene. I haven't seen the Watchmen HBO show. I don't have cable right now at all. Just something that like I felt like I could cut out of my budget for now. So have not seen it. Heard a lot of interesting things about it. Sounds interesting. Haven't seen it. You think it's bad that she can keep up with a way more experienced fighter? I mean, so could Luke, you know? She definitely hasn't won or anything. She just barely held her own. Let's see. Thank you for the super chat, John. John says, favorite full moon movie minus Trancers 2. Dude, I'm the exact same place as you. But let me say, yeah, I think, I'm trying to think if it's Trancers 1 or 2 that I like more. I think I like Trancers 1 a little bit more. I would say Trancers. Other full moon movies that are up there, Robot Jocks. But I like the Trancers series. And I like some of the Puppet Masters. Yeah, it's cool. Happy to see something Puppet Master related. Yeah, it's a little more obscure for like a horror movie to utilize for the month, right? What's everybody having for dinner? See if anybody has had like a really fascinating meal. Maybe somebody put some hard work into something or had something unique tonight. What has everybody had for dinner tonight? If you're in the dinner time zone. Maybe you're way out of that, and that's a weird question. Spaghetti and meatballs. Pupusas. Yum. Cereal. I've been there many times. Tacky. Another spaghetti. White cheddar mac and cheese. Apparently today is pasta day. Microwave dinner. Gene. You need an oven. Mi amigo. You need an oven. You need to have real food. But anyway. Cool shadows on the trench coat. Thanks. Gonna keep working on them. Hopefully they keep coming out all right. What else do we have for interesting dinners tonight? Cauliflower, broccoli, and veggie sausage. I'd be down with that. Rice and beans and chicken. Yum. Cherry vanilla ice cream with peanut butter M&Ms. Jordan, you win. I think we're all jealous. I became lactose intolerant at some point in my like mid to late 20s, and I just can't do ice cream anymore. Even if I take a Lactaid pill, it upsets my stomach like right away. I'm just in incredible pain and cramps. I miss it so much. I loved ice cream. McDonald's, sure. Balsamic salmon with fried goat cheese and a fig compote. KZ, that is definitely the most adult dinner tonight, and that sounds fantastic. That sounds really great. Rice and chicken, healthy. Bacon, eggs, and rice. Steak and potatoes. James, I'm most jealous of you. That is my as my favorite is steak and potatoes. Sounds basic, but what can I say? It definitely is my personal favorite. Non-dairy cherry Garcia. Non-dairy cherry Garcia? That sounds like it's right up my alley. I gotta look into that. I didn't know there was such a thing. Puppet Master versus Chucky, who wins? I'll give it to Chucky on that. The dolls are kind of little, and you need about 8 of them to actually be a big threat. Chucky was a serial killer, and he's clever, and he's very malicious. And he's not controlled by anyone else. The puppets are usually controlled by someone, hence the title Puppet Master. So I would give it to Chucky. Yeah. Cool question. How was work? I didn't make it into work today, Rishi. Today in the morning I was about as depressed as I could be. I just couldn't do it. I think they understood. I'll be back tomorrow for sure. Couldn't do it today. And I felt a little guilty about that, but I was down in the dumps. That's a first for me, not being able to make it into work because of how depressed I was. But I was having a unique situation, getting my prescription refilled. My work knew that I told my bosses about how the issue and how it was sort of affecting me, so that they had a little bit of a heads up there. And I just couldn't do it. Chucky can switch bodies and has a wife. Chucky knows a little bit of voodoo magic. It's what allowed him to get into a doll's body. But he's never really ever been successful at transferring out of that. So that's sort of the big premise, the big hook of each movie, is him trying to basically get into another body, a real person again. But he always fails. Don't worry, I'm doing all right. Chucky is the Terminator now. Oh, that's right, because the latest one, he was like a robot instead, right? Yeah. I made this stream. I'm able to do it from home. Makes a difference, and I am feeling better now towards the end of the day. I needed some time, so I hope they understand at work. I really do. I think they will, but they've been pretty good. I've never had an issue quite like this before, where I was this down. Puppets could have a decent chance if they gang up on Chucky and use their heavy hitters torch and 6-shooter. Yeah, maybe. And then there is that strong guy. I don't know. I forget what his name is. How do bullets the size of needleheads cause any damage? Magic? Maybe. Chibi versus Garfield? Oh, Chibi. Garfield's a fat ass. Garfield. Man, when I was a little kid, I used to think that Garfield was funny, but then I sort of reread some of his comic strips once I grew up, and I was like, I don't think these are funny at all. 144p, that sounds terrible. That must have been the worst resolution you can possibly get. I used to love lasagna because Garfield did. Yeah. Like, oh, Garfield loves this food. So do I. Lasagna's good, though. I still like lasagna. Lasagna made well is good. I also used to try to put weird things on my pizza because the Ninja Turtles did. I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna put a scoop of ice cream on it, or I'll pour some cereal on it. That one wasn't as successful. I'd eat it, but I was like, this isn't a treat. That's when you're dumb. Like, as a real little kid, I'm just like, oh, this fictional character likes a weird thing, then somebody must like it. Maybe I'll like it. Yeah, I did, Gene. I put weird things on my pizza here and there. Whipped cream on pizza? Energon. Delicious Energon. Ba weep, grana weep, ninny ba. The universal greeting, and then you just have an Energon goodie. So good. Yummy. Favorite version of TMNT? Cool question. Let me give it a moment of thought just so that I know I'm not like rushing into my decision. Probably my favorite is like just those first few original issues by Eastman and Laird. That sort of laid out a version that I fell in love with as a kid and sort of stuck with that passion. But I really like the semi-recent version that Nickelodeon did, the CG animated one. I thought that was very well done. Thought they did a good job giving the turtles some distinct personalities, sort of varied up their body types, and one of the things I really loved was they seemed to mix in a lot of the mythology from previous versions of the cartoons and comics and stuff. They sort of, everything was fair game to mix up and come up with a new iteration. They also do that on the current IDW book, which I like. Sort of encompasses everything that's been Turtles before. Yeah, I've seen Sling Blade. It was a good movie. Where do you get weed in the sewers? Man, I don't know. I think they just get high on methane fumes. Never heard you talk about your time in college. I loved college, man. College was great. Met some wonderful friends. I think I had a pretty successful college career, made Dean's List, got my degree, on time and everything. Started doing stand-up and improv during that time, which was very interesting. Glad that I tried it out. Loved it. I don't know what else to say about it, really. I got to see a new part of the country and discover a lot of foods that I liked. I went to Tulane in New Orleans, and I really enjoyed my time there, in New Orleans specifically. And yeah, it was wonderful. Got to discover new food, new music, new all sorts of great things. It was great. I like when reboots make use of the franchise history, like DuckTales and Mystery Inc. Yeah, I haven't seen those, but that does make sense to utilize that stuff. Thanks for the Harrow County review. It's something I think I'll like. Oh, well, thank you very much for the compliment. I hope you do like it. I was pleasantly surprised with it. That one was one that like I just heard good things, so I put it as a potential for like potential thing to review for this month, and my patrons voted it in, so that was one that I read for the show, and I was pretty surprised. I don't think I've read anything else by writer Cullen Bunn before, and I was like, oh, I think I don't know, like at least for this, I liked his writing style. It offered something a little different, and I liked it. There was something poetic about the way he writes. I liked his use of narration boxes, and I'm looking forward to trying out some more of his stuff, seeing if there's anything else by him that I enjoy. Josh Brolin Cable. What about him? Really like your Moon Knight video. Thank you, John. I shared an apartment with Declan Shalvey a decade ago and we're good pals. Wow, that's amazing. Well, your pal's definitely a very talented artist. I really liked his interpretation of Moon Knight. He did something really cool with that, man. That's really great that like you guys are buds and all. You and he were buddies, right? I don't know if any of you out there seen Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. That's a comedy that I really, really like. You and him were buddies, weren't you? If he needs to be your buddy again, I'll not stand in your way. Jojo knows Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. Matt Berry on that thing, so funny, and Richard Ayoade, two really, really funny guys. But the whole show is really great, like just such a weird, cool premise. Garth Marenghi is great show. Oh, was it on Adult Swim? I didn't realize that. That's amazing. That's amazing. Oh, you just saw it this month, so it's pretty fresh in your mind, Jordan. He's in Dublin, but I'm still in Scotland. Well, that sounds pretty cool. Yep, they were on the IT Crowd. But before the IT Crowd, they did Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. Yeah, I did Moon Knight in a previous video, and one of the runs that I talk about that I really enjoyed was just a 6-issue series, 6-issue run, I should say, by Warren Ellis with artist Declan Shalvey. And now we see that his friend and roommate is here in the chat room with us, so pretty exciting. Small world. It really can seem like a small world sometimes. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the last time I was in Tokyo, I bumped into a friend of mine from Washington, D.C. I wasn't living in D.C. anymore. I was living out here in Seattle. I didn't know he'd be there. We bumped into each other in Tokyo. Of all places in the world, just like amazing to bump into an old friend. Another country, another city, a whole world away. And you're like, yeah... Sometimes it seems like a small world. It's a big hamburger back there. Hell yeah, it is. Is it wrong that I'm watching comic tropes in my jacuzzi tub up here on the moon? You're on the moon. Nothing wrong with that. I used to bump into my math teacher all over the place, shopping wherever. Then we saw each other in Disneyland. That is different, huh? Small world sometimes, that's all. Sometimes I wonder about, like, you know, how they say, like, oh, people are separated by 60 degrees of separation. Like, everyone you could, like, sort of connect within that and in real life, like, not just as a game. And I'm like, I wonder, like, you know, if I just picked someone in the middle of Vietnam, how many people would I have to go through that like to connect us? I wonder. Ran into an old college roommate on the train in Chicago. Wow. That's cool. It's a fun, weird feeling to do that. Like, what are you doing here? Synchronicity feels like magic. It does. Our brain like always wants to find patterns, and sometimes things are just a coincidence, but like we attribute like it's just our instinct to attribute some sort of meaning to it, and sometimes just things happen, and that in and of itself, it's just a fun weird feeling. We ignore all the times we do not see someone we know. We do not. We ignore all the times we do not see. Oh, right. Yeah. I think about that sometimes when I'm like maybe on a commute or something. I'm like, everybody here is like, driving somewhere that to them is important. Like everybody here has a story. I could be making an episode of Comic Tropes, and if you could just somehow magically see behind the wall, you'd see somebody like walk by. What's their story? What do they got going on that day? Would that be interesting? Hello, Franco. Do I believe in multiverse theory? I think sometimes I do. I don't know that I've never ever like read anything that like confirms it, but I think I do. I think I do believe in sort of parallel universes. You have a cousin in Vietnam, so through me, just one. Well, I've got a coworker that's from Vietnam. Now that I think of it, so that was just meant to be a random example. But maybe I would connect through somebody I already know. Like could I go to like a small town in Russia? A small farming town. How many people would we need to go through to find out that like there's some people that we know in common? Like how many would we have to go back to figure that out? I wonder. Would be a cool experiment for like some sort of like a show with a big budget to just sort of like randomly pick some people in the world and figure out like how they might know each other. Just took pics for my Star Wars fig that I'm going to put on eBay, and I was thinking, what do you think of the special editions? I don't really care for the special editions. Yeah, I grew up with like, a certain version of Star Wars, saw it a bunch of times on like TV and VHS and stuff, and that became Star Wars. So I didn't feel like, there were any big improvements with the special editions. Then they sort of bothered me. I wish George Lucas hadn't done that. The ones that bother me the most, though, are things like Han Solo awkwardly shooting like Greedo first. I'm like, that doesn't feel right. And then like Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back, like he jumps down like this big shaft, and they added like this huge scream, like he's terrified or something. I'm like, he just willingly did that. Like, what's going on here? So yeah, I don't really care for them. I've got a set of Star Wars DVDs that like they are the special editions, but they had a bonus disc where they just ripped the original cut off of the original laser discs. So anyway, I've got that on DVD, and that's what I watch when I'm in the mood to go back to Star Wars. Is I watch like the original cuts. It'd be nice if someday Disney could release that. I mean, now they bought Fox, so they have the rights to all the movies to distribute like all the Star Wars movies, because Fox used to own the distribution rights for just that first one. But now Disney has that, so I would love to see like that redone. You have those DVDs too? This blade drawing is looking cool. Well, I hope so. Thank you. Just going to draw a little bit of this bed in the background just because I was having some fun sort of mapping out all those wrinkles and stuff. Or folds, maybe I should say. The linchpin of the 6 degrees theory is a famous person. Well, probably. Famous people know or are connected to more people. So, yeah, you'd have to think. But you know what? I think I have sort of, just in my time, bumped into, well, not just bumped into, like, I know some pretty successful, famous folks. So, I think that, like, that would be interesting to sort of, like, see, like, okay, well, using them as the linchpin, like, who knows these people? But I wish it was easy to use that because, like, for instance, I'm about to go to Japan, and one thing I'd love to do for the show is get a tour of, like, Shueisha or something like that. But I have no idea who to reach out to right now. I've sort of tried some of my comics connections, and, like, no one, like, seems to, like, know anybody at, like, say, Viz, who does the American translations and adaptations for a lot of their stuff. That would mean a lot to me to, like, do something like that. Like, if only it was easy to sort of figure out our connections between one another. It's not. It's hard. Can't I ask them through social media? I feel like it would get ignored. If I had a bigger channel, maybe. But I don't think... I think it would just come off, like, kind of weird and they'd just sort of block or something. Have I seen the 78 movie for the TV trilogy... Oh, TV movie, Trilogy of Terror, the Zuni doll? Yeah, I think I have. Tell me if I'm right. Like, was that written by Richard Matheson? If so, then I've seen it, but it was a long time ago. I can't look something like that up easily right now. But if it was written by Richard Matheson, then I have seen that. Couldn't hurt to try, maybe. No, I don't watch the Jeepers Creepers trilogy. It was directed by a guy that was like a convicted pedophile, so I don't want to watch that. First horror movie did I see? First one that I saw was probably Jaws. I think I saw that at a relatively young age. And then, what else might be up there? First one I saw in the movie theater was because I wasn't allowed to, like, see, like, R-rated movies for the most part. Like, when I was growing up, my mom was pretty strict about that. Was Alien 3. The Zuni doll. Yeah, a lot of people remember this. What do I think of Alan Moore hating everything based off of his work? I think it's slightly overblown, but I get it. He's very protective of his interpretations. I think most of the time he has every right to feel that way because he created it. So if that's how he feels, then that's how he feels, and so be it. But I read an interview not too long ago where he was saying, like, that, like, he goes, look, the Zack Snyder Watchmen adaptation might be a fine movie in its own right. He goes, I just personally have no interest in watching it. I was like, oh, well, that's a little more nuanced than what we sort of usually hear from him. And I can understand that. Like, if you're like, yeah, I don't want to see somebody adapt that. Like, okay. That's fair. I think that, like, out of the adaptations that he's had, like, Watchmen was one of the better ones, actually. And, like, uh, yeah, I don't like most of the stuff I've seen in the last couple of years from Zack Snyder, but I didn't think Watchmen was too bad. I think it was a little too actiony, a little too glossy and glitzy and stuff, and he missed some of the nuance. But overall, it was fairly loyal for the most part, and it included a lot. So I give him some credit for that adaptation. Actually, oh, V for Vendetta wasn't too bad. Yeah. Thanks, Lawrence. Can Batman solve Akira cases faster than L? Maybe. Maybe, but it's because if he can, it's only because he's sort of been exposed to weirdness and is willing to accept certain things a little bit faster as possibilities. That's the only reason. But maybe. I only say maybe, not definitely. Let's see, John has something else to say. Declan drew you into an issue of his Moon Knight run. I'm the sleep doctor guy who buries people in his basement. You are? That was great. That's awesome, John. That's really, really cool. To you were drawn in not just as a character, you're drawn in as like the main character in that story, basically. That's too hilarious. Did he like the JLU episode for The Man Who Has Everything? I don't know. Did he? I would say that like most of the adaptations not so good. I didn't think From Hell was a good adaptation. That like didn't even really delve into what he was trying to do with From Hell. Like that's not even close. I think that what else for like stuff that was adapted by him. Oh, I mean, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That's a pretty bad movie in my opinion. That was a really bad adaptation. Like I wouldn't blame anyone for being upset at that. If they had like created it. So yeah, sometimes I understand where he's coming from. He's like, look, here's the thing. He admits, he's like, look, I wrote this to be a comic. I tried to use the techniques of comics, narration boxes, certain like non-linear storytelling, expanded scopes with like huge big budget ideas, surreal dreamlike sequences. These are very difficult things to convey in a movie with the same results. Like even with the animated adaptation of Tales from the Black Freighter, that doesn't come close to having the same sort of resonance that the kid reading the comic within a comic in Watchmen has. That component is almost unadaptable. It's pretty close to you just can't do it. So he's got Alan Moore has a little bit of a point, I think, sometimes in saying like, hey, I didn't write my things to be adaptations. I wrote them to utilize the language of comic books. Yeah, I know. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen made Sean Connery quit acting. Exactly. He had such a bad time on it. He was just like, yeah, I guess I'm done. But it was like almost a cherry on top because he'd passed on like several roles that ended up being like, huge successes. He was offered Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings movies, and he's like, well, I don't know what this is. No thanks. And then he was offered Morpheus in The Matrix, and he's just like, a bunch of kung fu with like, Keanu Reeves. I don't get it. No thanks. And then like he basically sees both of those become huge successes, and he's like, oh, okay, okay. I guess I just don't get like how popular like sci-fi type stuff is and that. So I need to accept like one of those. What's this? League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, written by like a really good. Okay, sign me up. I'm in for League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Oops, no. Do a Sean Connery accent. I hardly know what to say. You just add a little bit of a lisp and a very thick Scottish accent. I can't do a. Oh, we've got actually a Scot in the room with us, so probably he just thinks I'm sounding like somebody who got punched in the face in a boxing match rather than doing a Sean Connery impression. Money penny, see what you can do. I don't know how to do a Sean Connery accent. Then the game is afoot. Keep your head, MacLeod, or it's all over. That's my Egyptian accent. Ramirez, the ancient Egyptian immortal. I'll take S words for 400, Alex. Not not bad. Okay. Well, I did my best, John. I should have Sean Connery on my show. Yeah. African. I don't think there's such a thing as just African accent. I mean, that's a whole continent. Can you do I was about to say Australian. Can you do an Asian accent or a European accent? Not really. You have to be more specific. And honestly, probably not a good idea for me to even try either of those things. Maybe a South African accent I could attempt, but that is a tough one to nail. I have met South Africans before, and that accent is... I can hear what they're saying and everything. I cannot comprehend what they're doing differently. Like, it goes straight through me, and I cannot do... More power to anyone who can do an authentic South African accent. That is the toughest. I'm not going to do a Nigerian accent. I'm not even going to attempt a Wakandan accent. That's the kind of thing that's going to get me, like, fired. Harry Partridge, fairly famous animator, drops in, says, I can do a Northern Hemisphere accent. I can do a Western Hemisphere accent. So, it depends. Do a Burt Reynolds voice. That's my impression, Sheldon. Cajun. You know what? Doing a Cajun accent, an authentic Cajun accent, tricky. When I was going to college, I was in New Orleans. I was exposed to a bunch of guys that were, had authentic Cajun backgrounds. For a while I could do it. I can't anymore. It's a weird thing. There's a little bit of Southern in there. There's a little bit of French. And there's a little bit of something that sounds like it's from, Brooklyn, New York. It's so hard to do, a modern-day Cajun accent. And you know what? You just don't hear them unless you're in, basically New Orleans. It's a real, sort of limited to one area of our country. There's just certain parts of Louisiana that's not just Southern, has, a New Orleans accent or a Cajun accent. And they're weird, man. They're weird. So, yeah, can't do that. I would need a voice coach to do something like that. Nolans. Do an Earth accent? I can't do an Earth accent. What was it? Wasn't there a Doctor Who thing? It might have been the Ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, where they were like, why do you have a Northern accent? And he was like, every planet has a north. And I like that. Why do you sound English? Why do you sound like Northern English? He's like, everybody has a north. An alligator accent? Cajun equals Acadian. They mostly originally came from Maritimes of Canada. They did, but these days... And I can't do Esperanto. Sorry, that's beyond me. Chris, what horror movie villain do you think you could defeat in an impromptu fist fight? Harry's just throwing back at me questions that I've probably tried to ask him in his live streams. In a fist fight, I could defeat... Well, he can't have basically any weapons or anything like that. Maybe Pinhead, as long as I'm not trying to punch him in the face, which would, hurt one's hands because you'd get needles in the face. I could do a bunch of body shots, some Krav Maga kicks, and so I think I could take on Pinhead in a fight. I know at one point in the past, though, he had a military background before he became a Cenobite, so who knows? So who knows? Jigsaw, yeah, I could defeat Jigsaw in a fist fight, because Jigsaw, when we meet him, is a cancer patient on death's door, and he's old. You can defeat Rosemary's Baby. I could defeat certain people that turn into werewolves during the day. During the day, I could defeat certain people that become horror movie werewolves. Not everyone, but some of them. Your average horror movie villain is either incredibly ridiculously strong or very talented with edged weapons. So generally, I wouldn't stand too much of a chance. Can I hold my own in a fight? I dare say that I could. Against a horror movie villain, that never goes well. Like, what was it? I want to say the kid's name was Marcus or something in Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. He was a boxer anyway, and he uses skills against Jason, gives it his all, definitely staggers Jason, but Jason just basically keeps taking the punishment, and then once the kid's completely exhausted, Jason takes him out with one punch that's so powerful it knocks his head clean off his shoulders. Horror villains can teleport. I'm ready for that, because you know what I do? I do one of these. See? I look behind me real quick. I'm like, nobody's going to sneak up on me. So I'm pretty good at see, no one's going to sneak up on me. What the? Oh my God! Let's see if I can do it over here. Hello! How's it going? And you're probably thinking, hey, Chris, Jason Voorhees, he doesn't talk. Wrong. In Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, he possesses multiple other people and frequently has lucid conversations. How do you punch someone's head off? Uppercut. Get right under the jaw, and with enough power, knocks right back. Happens every time. I think I could probably also take the Leprechaun in a fist fight. This is a good question, Harry. I really appreciate the serious question while I'm knocking myself out with the artwork. But the Leprechaun, despite his magical powers, if it just came to a fist fight, yeah, I can defeat him. I gotta fight Christine the car. I'll give it to the car. I'm pretty sure nobody can beat a car in a fight. That's a no-win scenario there. Trying to get the cap off a pen. It was really stuck. I'm basically done. I'm just sort of vamping at this point because for once I don't have to edit something right away. So I'm just sort of having some fun. I appreciate the questions. What time is it over in the UK? Because I've got somebody from Scotland and I've got somebody from England over there right now. This is a terrible Wesley Snipes illustration. No, I agree with you. I gave it my best, but what can I say? Always bet on black. That was my favorite Wesley Snipes line. A lot of people, it's some mother always trying to ice skate uphill. Mine is always bet on black. Passenger 57, folks. Haunted tank versus Christine. I'll give it to the haunted tank. Could run over Christine. Christine did eventually basically die because it got beaten up so bad. There was eventually just so much damage, Christine couldn't heal itself. 10:15 in Canada. That's not too bad. The person in bed is with the IRS. What? Ghostface was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. Do I like the Resident Evil movies? Like is probably an overstatement, okay? Have I enjoyed them, though? Yes, I will admit that I have. Especially the first and the fourth. Pretty goofy, ridiculous stuff, but I have enjoyed them for what they are. I've enjoyed them for what they are, which isn't much. Drop Zone. That was Wesley Snipes and what's her face? She played Witchblade. Yancey Butler? Is that her? She was in Hard Target with Van Damme. Asked him what kind of a name is Chance. My mama took one. If you, for some reason, have not been exposed to the cinematic majesty of Hard Target, starring Mr. Jean-Claude Van Damme, all I can tell you is stop watching this right away and do yourself an incredible favor. Rent Hard Target. It's got Jean-Claude Van Damme knocking out a snake, a rattlesnake specifically, with a punch. And it's got Wilford Brimley riding a horse, shooting bow and arrow as like a Cajun uncle going, he's like, "Uncle, there are bad men in the swamp. I know. I smell them." It is hilarious and great. What horror killer would you be? I hope I'd be none of them. Some of them are like, I guess good people turned bad. Like Candyman wasn't an evil man, but when he died, he became a vengeful spirit. So, maybe something like Candyman? That's right. I just equated myself to a strong black man. Good going, Chris. What kaiju would you prefer to attack your town? Gadzuki? I think we could defeat him. Gadzuki, we might have a chance. Oh my god. Good old Gadzuki. Hello, Steven Universe. Candyman will kill you with diabetes, yeah. Have I seen Psycho 2? Yes. It's a solid horror sequel and I expected trash. Yeah, the funny thing is like that Psycho 2 and Psycho 4, not super bad movies actually. Psycho 3 I don't think was a very good movie, but like, now do they compare to the original? No, they don't. But I think that like you go in with some pretty severely lowered expectations on something like any Psycho sequel. I mean, and then you're kind of surprised by going like, oh, not terrible. Isn't Gadzuki just big Scooby-Doo? He's the like cartoon like nephew or something of Godzilla. I don't know. Is it his son? Is it his nephew? I don't know. Well, I'll say nephew because it's funnier to me. Godzilla has a nephew called Gadzuki. Best worst movie that you watched over and over again on cable as a kid? Tank Girl, Johnny Mnemonic. Yeah. Oh, what did I watch a lot? Like, I don't know, man. I don't think I rewatched bad movies as a kid. Like, I also didn't have cable, but I definitely rewatched Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Raiders of the Lost Ark and stuff like that. Yeah. Huh. Hard to like remember exactly like what I watched and didn't watch. We didn't have cable, exactly, yeah. So we didn't really rewatch tons of stuff. That's Jean, my sister, speaking up there. Appreciate the questions. Thank you, Harry, for... and by the way, if anybody, for some reason... I assume you all know this, but if you haven't checked out Harry's channel, Harry Partridge, strong recommend. An amazing animator. Amazing. Currently working on a new sort of cartoon he's been doing on Harry Partridge Live. to promote an upcoming movie that he's going to make. So, some pretty exciting times for Mr. Harry Partridge. But if you haven't seen it, I think that one thing that would definitely be of interest to anybody watching this is his Watchmen parody, which was the first thing of his that I saw years ago and made me a fan. So the fact that he started watching my channel, like, just sort of sent me over the moon. An incredibly pleasant fellow who for some reason is obsessed with Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. But hey, everybody has their fetishes, right? Daredevil, which is better, Man Without Fear or Born Again? Born Again. Lot to like about Man Without Fear. Great art, interesting story. Born Again's definitely better. Love it. Love Born Again. They took a bunch of those ideas for the third season of Daredevil. I thought it like elevated it to be so that like the third season was better than the second. Chris, you're too sweet. I'm about to sleep, but thanks for the props. Or, as Harry would say, Chris, you're too sweet. I'm about to sleep, but thanks for the props, governor. I believe that I just nailed a perfect, flawless impression of Harry Partridge. So don't be surprised if, as soon as I master Flash or, some sort of tool like Go Animate, just take over his whole career. Sorry, Harry. You had your chance. But if I can do your voice and your work, what have you got left? Frank Miller did a great Daredevil. You can't take that away from him. You sure can't. Yeah, he may have lost his mind a little bit at some point, and apparently in more recent years regained it. But his Daredevil work, second to none, I would say. I would say that he's still the gold standard on Daredevil. And there have been some good stuff. There have been some good things. But I would still put Mr. Frank Miller as the best Daredevil writer. Elevated the character. Definitely defined who he is. More of a street level crime fighter than like a jokey prankster Spider-Man knockoff. I mean, the way Stan wrote him, Daredevil was just Spider-Man but blind. Have I seen Society of Virtue? Nope, don't know what that is. Quesada Daredevil cover in pencils for Father 15 years ago. 'Twas amazing. I loved Quesada back in the day too. Haven't seen his stuff in more recent years now that I'm thinking of it, but there's a lot to like about Joe Quesada's work. What's Society of Virtue about? Since you brought it up, it sounds like it's not actually about a society of virtue. That's like ironic. I don't know. Did I watch Glitch on Netflix? No, what's Glitch? Never even heard of that one. You know what could, like, bring me back to Netflix in a big way is if they started, like, just putting old 80s and 90s cartoons on it or something. Grab a bunch of those forgotten things like Turbo Teen and USA High or whatever it was called, like Galaxy High and Kid Video. Weird things like that. How do you sell a comic book story? Depends on what kind of format you want to put it in, etc. I would say that the most consistently successful way is to first publish something yourself, so that you can like prove to people like, hey, just on my own I can do this. But if you want to get in while the getting's good, you can get on Train Funky Pat. Doesn't sound right, does it? Glitch is an Australian show. It was good, but I wasn't a fan of the final season. Never heard of it, Gene. I assume you're just making it up to tease your brother. There was definitely no show called Glitch. Just trying to tease me. I'm going to report you to YouTube. Star Blazers, sure. I think Jack Kirby did work on Thundar the Barbarian. Is old TMNT streaming anywhere? Good question. At this rate, maybe, what do you call it? Maybe there's a streaming service specifically for Nickelodeon who owns Ninja Turtles, so I don't know. Can't keep up. Too many streaming services. Can't keep up with them all. Tomorrow's prompt is ride. Well, I've already drawn Christine. A scene from Haunted Mansion. What do you want to kill me? Are you talking about that Eddie Murphy movie? Good Lord. Good Lord, Mandela Butterfly. What do you have to say for yourself? That is cruel and unusual to ask me to do that. But I don't have a good idea for ride off the top of my head, so who knows. Haunted Mansion. You gotta be kidding me. The drawing is dope. Maximum Overdrive. Yeah, Maximum Overdrive is an option. Weird movie. Not a good movie, but an entertaining movie. Draw the Headless Horseman. Well, he rides. You could think about that. The Headless Horseman. I guess you could argue that the Headless Horseman, the Johnny Depp one, is a horror movie, right? I don't know what else you'd necessarily classify it as. Maximum Overdrive equals maximum Stephen King on coke. Definitely the truth. He's talked about that extensively, and as soon as you see the movie, you're like, oh, this makes sense. He was on coke. Okay, this makes sense. Draw the pumpkin for Horseman's face to be Conan O'Brien. So basically just draw a really buff Conan O'Brien. Is that what people are asking me for? I can understand that. It's what we all want out of life. When I lived on the East Coast, I used to be able to drive down to New York pretty easily, and I did go and see Conan's show back when he was doing late night, and I miss being able to do that. Like that was good times. I really like Conan O'Brien. I find him very, very funny, and I miss being able to go see his show in person. Nobody does a show up here in Seattle. So that's why I like the big cities, I guess. I like the entertainment industry and stuff. And stuff, you know, and stuff. Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango. Almost live, that's true, but that was not. You could say that I'm almost a fan, but I'm not. Little Blade running around, doing his thing. Oh, Little Blade. A lot of kids still like Monster Squad. What's not to like? I took you once, Gene? I think I gave you tickets, is what I did. I think I gave you tickets and you went on your own to go see Conan. Because I think I had gotten myself tickets and I was just like, I don't think I'm going to go this weekend. But I know you went at least once to go see it, yeah. Anybody here go to a party this weekend and dress up as something, being that it's Halloween and all? I'd love to hear about your costume, if so, or even if you're just planning on going in the next day or two. Like if you've got like a costume, tell me about it. I want to hear. I want to hear about costumes. I want to. Why? Why won't any of you give me that feedback that I so desperately want? Give me your feedback. I'm just kidding around. I'm thinking of dressing up as Mae Borowski from A Night in the Woods. Well, you should. I'm doing an Alex Ross Batman costume. That sounds pretty daring. I was there. All right, so we went to see Conan together. I apologize for not remembering. I know I saw it more than once, so I guess memories blur. Memories blur. Scooby-Doo? The dog? How are you going to do that? That sounds great. Dressing up as Peter B. Parker. Very, very cool. Naked cowboy. Oh, well, your wife should let you. A t-shirt with a bunch of cardboard box symbols and khakis and say I'm Solid Snake. Snake? Snake? Snake! I'm giving this bed blue sheets. Pretty sure that's what they were in the movie. My ears. Well, I had to. I had to do it right. I dressed up as a middle-aged schmuck every day. Congrats. It sounds challenging. Bob Ross. Rock solid idea. A zombie employee. I like it. Two-Face at my local con last week. And you won. Hey, congratulations. I always dress as a baseball fury for Halloween. Easiest costume to put together. Yes, the baseball furies. For some reason, the most memorable gang out of a lot of bizarre gangs in The Warriors. I like The Warriors. That's a cool movie. Wouldn't really make sense anymore. I was at Coney Island just a few weeks ago. It's not full of gangs. No part in New York is full of gangs, really. Meow. Meowing with my cat. I speak her language. Cat. Hi, cat. Wow, we've almost been going two hours. Speaking of Warriors, did you see their Funko Pops are dropping soon? I'm not too up to date on Funko Pop information. No, I don't think I only have like 3 Funko Pops, and they've all been just sort of gifts from people that are like, hey, you like nerdy things. Maybe you like these obscure little figures called Funko Pops. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. Strikes me as a very difficult collection sort of thing to get into, just because there's so many of them. They never stop. They just never stop. Cat wants something. Cat just wants attention, right? Because, you know, she's had food, she's got water. She can have attention if she wants it. She just has to come here. I'm not falling for her plaintive meows to walk over there. Yeah, maybe I will fall for it as soon as I wrap this up. Will you be patient? Oh, the pleasure of being a pet owner. Oh, the pleasure. will you review books or compare books to comic books, such as Skullduggery Pleasant or Comic Killing Joke versus Novel Killing Joke? It's an interesting idea, Akio. I'm not against something like that, but I don't have any immediate plans to do sort of a comparison. I think that if I had more time for my channel, I would potentially be interested in doing direct comparisons of adaptations from, like, if comics were adapted from a book, or if comics got themselves a movie adaptation or a TV adaptation, that I would be interested in going over some of the changes and analyzing, whether that was like a good idea, a bad idea, a necessary idea for the medium. But because I've talked about it here and there for certain reviews. The Boys, for instance, I talked about some of the differences. I found the TV show to be an improvement on the material, but that was my opinion, and I argued the case. I don't currently have any other plans off the top of my head to do any comparisons. The Boys are back in town, Austin, yes. Will I review Grimm Fairy Tales comics? Not familiar with those, so never say never to anything, but no immediate plans. Grimm Fairy Tales comics. No, don't know those. Are those literally just adaptations of, Grimm's Fairy Tales or something else? Yeah, we're the cat's staff. What about Ghost Rider for Ride Marvel Horror? It's a fun, cool idea there, Funky Pat, but I have been trying to stick to movies for what I'm drawing for Inktober. So for Ride, I gotta think of movies, things that you can ride there. You can ride a horse, you can ride a bike, you can ride all sorts of amazing things, but I'm gonna stick with movies, I think. Would I ever cover the Eric Shanower, Scotty Young Oz adaptations? Maybe. Draw the Killer Elevator. Oh, yeah. What was that called? The Lift? Maybe it was called The Ride elsewhere. There was a horror movie called The Lift. I think it was even a French horror movie. And the box art for it said, "Take the stairs, for the love of God, take the stairs." And I remember reading that and going well, yeah, it's actually pretty good advice. If you've got a haunted elevator, that's one quick way to sort of not have to deal with that too much is to go ahead and use the stairs. It is the lift. Yeah, the lift. Here we go. Oh my God, I don't know what I would do for that. What if I literally spent an hour just drawing a haunted elevator? That would just not be a good use of my time. But I'm sort of tempted because of what a bad idea it is. Wow. Just draw the haunted elevator from the lift. Take the stairs. Take the stairs. For the love of God. Take the stairs. Okay, will do. Thanks for the tip. Yeah, you're going to want to take the stairs, buddy. This elevator's got a fatal case of hauntings. It's just going to drop and kill you 9 times out of 10. Probably a little... Yeah, but I'm on the 3rd floor. Well, it's up to you, sir. You can definitely take our elevator. Just letting you know, it is currently haunted. And we do have about a 90% death rate on it right now. But, he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to have to chance those odds. I just really don't want to use the stairs tonight. So, okay, for the love of God, take the stairs. But sure, if this is the way you want to go, buddy, totally understand. Take one haunted elevator available. Ding. That's a bad movie nobody needs to see. It's up there with Deathbed, the bed that kills. There's some things that if they're haunted, pretty easy to avoid, and I would say that a bed and an elevator, pretty easy to avoid. I'm not drawing David S. Pumpkins. How dare you? How dare you, folks? Didn't that meme die like at least a year ago? It's not really a meme, I guess. A character. They tried to like rush out like a animated movie based on him, and it was terrible. Deathbed is a trash classic. Well, it's a trash something. Yeah, you're going to probably want to avoid that bed over there. That one happens to be haunted. Only reason to utilize it is if you are a seriously haunted teenager and you are definitely willing to take the risk of being eaten by a bed. It's going to definitely happen to you a good 100% of the time. Yeah, I'm going to have to take that risk. What can I say? I gotta bone my lady here. Fair enough, son. Just giving you the proper warning, but... have at it and enjoy. I don't know what voice I'm doing there. I guess just vague Bostonian guy. You're going to want to avoid some of those haunted elevators where you can, but do understand needing to get your bone on. So get to it, you horny teenager. It's almost Cliff Clavin now that I listen to it. It's not meant to be Cliff Clavin, but it sounds a little like him. Cliff from Cheers. Yeah, that's a interesting point there, Normie, but point of fact that that would not be a good bed to get in. It would be my advice. And a little known fact, you can read this on Wikipedia, and I happen to have done that myself. Most deathbeds are known to be possessed by demons and will eat you. What kind of blue-collar worker is guarding a bed? Cliff Clavin. Peter Griffin? He's whinier, isn't he? I haven't really watched much Family Guy, but of course you see commercials and stuff. And he's like, Lois, yeah, I'm in a deathbed. Hey, remember the time E.T. came and sat in our deathbed? Oh, Peter, that's such a good memory you have. Yeah. Ash's car from the Evil Dead movies. Yeah, Raimi puts that car in everything. That's a good classic car. What movie should I watch tonight? Casablanca. That's a good impression. I don't know which one, but thank you, Sigamigs. Cliff. Man, my family calls me Cliff. Do they call you Cliff? Your work has really improved so much since last Inktober. Well, that's nice. Thanks, Mikey. Hard Target. Hard Target, yeah. Watch Hard Target tonight. Watch Hard Target. The car from Mandy. Oh, Mandy. Mandy was good. Mandy was underrated. Mandy, that is a badass, weird, I guess I'd call it horror. That is a weird one. It's cool. But I'm going to call it now, folks. I think that, I did semi-justice here to this version of Blade from the... what do you call them? Puppet Master movies. Getting tired, I guess. I gotta have some dinner. Death Race 2000. Yeah. I don't know. Someday I'll have to get a sharper camera because I'm looking at like this and then like looking at what I see on screen. It's not quite as sharp. All I can say is like I do think I do a little bit finer detail work than this. Bai in Japanese. What is bai? Is that like a konbanwan or something? I should do the Phantasm tomorrow. What's that got to do with Ride? Let me think. Spielberg's Duel. Yeah, I could draw that big Peterbilt. Sayonara. Sayonara. Sayonara, people. I'm taking off. It was a blast chatting with you. Tonight was definitely a really, really fun one. You've helped my mood improve a little bit. Definitely doing a little better right now than I was earlier today. You all had a hand in that, so thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the great questions, the super chats, all that good stuff. So, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna take off, and I'm gonna go get some dinner. I think you should all go get some dinner too, although most of you already told me what you ate, so anyway. I want you to keep reading comics. thank you for watching the new comic Tropes. If you haven't yet, definitely take a look. It's about Harrow County, and stay tuned. I've got some really good stuff coming up. So, yeah, keep reading comics. Bye-bye.